Hi everyone. Thanks to all of you who are tuning in. If you'll just give us a few minutes and we'll get started. Thanks for joining us and really looking forward to today's session. Hi everyone. Thanks to everyone who's joined us. Really looking forward to today's session. If you'll just give us a minute or two and we'll get started. Awesome. So thanks everyone for joining. My name is Mo. I'm one of the co-founders of Morta. As many of you know, and many of you here will be our community members. So as you know, we're running monthly community sessions where we bring one of our members of of the community who we've learned something from and who we think has done something that will open your eyes effectively to an implementation on the platform or a way of thinking about the platform. We're running these monthly sessions. So we're really excited today that we have Jamile from Mace with us, who's going to be sharing a lot more about how they've been leveraging the platform as a client representative for deliverables review management in many ways and for taking control of a lot of the design processes. So really looking forward to today's session. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to give you a quick overview of what we do, and then I'm going to hand over to Jamile. So projects rely on hundreds of disconnected solutions for planning, tracking, and communicating critical day-to-day operations. So when you're thinking of projects, regardless of who we are, whether it's a design manager, a BIM manager, a sustainability manager, or a commercial manager, or a QA/QC manager, for example, all roles involve having people go into different systems, pulling in data from them, and then updating Excel-based trackers with this information. And that ends up meaning that a lot of the information is disconnected, a lot of it is inconsistent. Um, and that ultimately results in many manual tasks that have to take place within the projects. And that introduces risks and then means a lot of time is being wasted on these administrative tasks. So where we come in is we provide hubs that connect information together, point solutions, and construction teams. And in many ways, that then means that organizations can move away from a mix of Word and Excel into a single hub where information is connected and the different teams can see the information that's relevant to them. But what's also critical is we acknowledge that we're not the only system, and that's why we're connecting with many of the different other systems that exist in order to pull data from them and in order to give you, in many ways, a single view of the truth. Now, that breaks down into firstly, we provide the familiarity and the flexibility of spreadsheets with the power of a database. So in many ways, we see that people use Excel because it's a really flexible tool. You can build on it the tracker that you want in the way that you see fit and in the way that really you think is right. And you have complete control over the logic that's in place. And we've tried to maintain that same level of flexibility, but at the same time, you have control that you wouldn't have in Excel. So, for example, people can't make changes to things like column names. People can't make changes to the template essentially that they're provided. And you can always use column types, which helps you improve the data quality. So for example, if something is a status, then that should be a select list. If something is a date, it should be a date field. Concatenation, container ID, that's a calculated field, and so on and so forth. So ultimately, that supports in improving the data consistency and the data quality. One of the other key aspects is we reuse data and support in automating tracking with one-click integrations. We've had one-click integrations, and I'll talk in a second. It's being used a lot for deliverable planning and tracking. But actually, one of the key reasons we invited Jamile today is they came up with a use case that we hadn't really envisioned for the integrations, and that you'll be hearing a lot more about that. But we make it very easy for you as professionals to pull in the data that you need from various systems. And we also provide templates that help you get started with best practice templates in many ways off the back of all of our communities, effectively collective efforts and experience. And the platform can then ultimately be used to connect and track information across the project lifecycle. So just like information management, that usually tends to be as a start. Many of you will be information managers, but there are many other trackers and many other functions, and a lot of them require the same data and require data from the same sources. So with the platform is many of the companies working with us are extending the platform then beyond information management. And we think one of the most interesting things about this is it ultimately means that you can start connecting these different functions together and ensuring that they're all on the same page. Now, what a lot of you are using us for, and what a lot of companies generally use us for, is to streamline information planning and to automate tracking. So rather than having reference data and requirements in Excel spreadsheets, you can move those onto the platform that then connect to trackers that will then connect to external solutions. You'll hear a variation of this process today, also from Jamile, but this is one of the most common use cases for the platform. Now, for the last few community sessions, you've had many of our community members come and speak and share their insights with you. In the next one, we thought it would be a good opportunity for us to give you an overview and an update of where the product has gotten to over the last 6 months. What are some of the latest features that we've added? What are some of the latest templates that we're adding? And what are some of the latest what's some of the latest happening in terms of integrations and the functionality that's there. So I'll be sharing a lot more about that in the next session. And so please make sure to join us. And without further ado, today really we're all here for the session with Jamile. I'm really, really excited about that. Again, I always say this, but like one of the key things in any of these sessions is we are really targeting people who we thought have opened our eyes to something. It can be a use case, it can be a feature, it can be even like the way to articulate value about the platform, but it's something that we've learned from and I've learned from. And we think that then ultimately that's a measure of you can also learn from it too. And there's some inspiration that you can take from some of the things that you'll hear about today. So I'm really excited to introduce Jamile, who I will add to the stage now.
Hello, afternoon, everyone.
Hi, Jamile. Thanks a lot for joining us. I'm really, really glad to have you here with us today.
Thank you for the invitation.
My pleasure. I'm just going to add, I've just added you. Okay, perfect. Thanks a lot, Jamile. Really looking forward to seeing what you'll share with us.
Brilliant. Sounds good. Well, thank you, everyone, for joining. Thank you, Mo, for the invite once again. There's something definitely I'm quite excited to do some knowledge sharing. It's something that we've been working on in the last few months, and it's already been well received by our team, causing some positive change. So yeah, happy to do some knowledge sharing around it. I have to say it is something that we're still trialing. There's still a lot to learn. It's just the start, but I think we took it quite far already. So let me start introducing myself. I'm Jamile Tuma. I'm an associate director of BIM at Mace Consult. My background is in architecture. I joined Mace March 2022, and on the consultancy side, and my focus is mainly public sector. And I think, in the public sector, you really get a good opportunity to create change, right? So there's so much visibility, there's so much opportunity to cascade things and to learn from other organizations. So I feel quite privileged to work in the sector. I'll take you through this tool, this platform that we're using at Mace in 4 chapters. So I'll introduce the challenge that we were trying to fix, or the problems that we were trying to fix. What was the setup that we came up with within Morta, how the solution looks like, and a few of our early conclusions, lessons learned, etc. So let's kick off with the challenge, or the challenges. So, from a technical advisor point of view, so we are really, working client side a lot of the time. The review and acceptance workflow, it's a very, very fundamental part, or a fundamental activity we have in a project. So that's, the S5 workflow, when we have to, on behalf of the client, accept, reject deliverables, review, provide clarifications, or ask for clarifications. That is a very, very fundamental part of our job. And if you think, you could say that an ideal scenario could be that, within a framework, all projects are using one CDE solution to manage all these information deliveries. Everyone is familiar with that system. Say, Viewpoint, for example, everyone is familiar with that system, the standards, workflows, training, commenting mechanisms, reporting mechanisms, everything is the same. So, of course, all the project teams are used to that solution, and they will naturally become more and more experienced, more familiar with it as they keep using it. Now, we have a different scenario where, in other frameworks, where for a number of very understandable reasons, there is no commitment to one platform. So the main contractor CDE solution is what gets adopted as the project's CDE solution. And, this will create a challenge for the client team, given that now they will have to learn, they will have to familiarize themselves with different systems. But not only that, of course, the various delivery teams, they will have different ways of managing the same system, right? So different systems and different setups. So this can be quite challenging, it can be time consuming, and with usually very, very tight deadlines, the time that we have available to learn those tools, get familiar with them, is very, very limited. Not only that, the inability to report on progress in a consistent way, or having random Excel spreadsheets flying around, trying to manually track deliverables, and of course usually failing, it makes it quite hard, quite challenging. And that's really where Morta comes in. So with the one-click integration, we were able to create one interface, consistent interface, that would look at all the CDE solutions and work as a guide for the client team to navigate them, right? So I will explain this a bit better, but just to summarize, the challenges that we're facing were reviewers facing the, having difficulty in navigating through different CDEs from different contractors, inconsistent overview for monitoring review progress, manual input for information management compliance checks. Now I say manual input because the way we would run compliance checks previously would be to go on the CDE, get manually a report, run that report through an Excel tool, and then get the results fed back to the contractor and to whoever necessary. Should there be another batch of uploads, we would have to go through the same process again. And that manual aspect of it, Morta has helped us with. No robust way to capture review comments when the project CDE solution is not suitable for commenting. So we see this is less and less common now, but we still see certain CDEs were not quite ready, they're not quite there, and we can't really use them for commenting. And we needed some sort of other mechanism. Excel gets messy, it gets complicated, difficult to control revisions, and again, Morta was a pretty good solution for that. Unclear visibility of the number of review cycles or review rounds needed to accept one deliverable. This is also something that we didn't really have a good understanding of, and now we should be able to. Now, of course, there are several components that make this platform, but I'll just take you through, two of the most important ones. So one of the main activities we needed to do was to identify what were the core attributes we needed from each CDE solution. And of course, making sure that these attributes were present in all the CDE solutions. So we ended up with those 9 attributes, starting with the deliverable reference, which is typically a custom attribute because it is specific to this framework. The file name, description, and revision, of course, they are fundamental. Its latest revision helps us filtering data so we can have the confidence that our reviewers are only looking at the latest set of information. And there's no risk of them reviewing accidentally an outdated version, which is something that was difficult to control with Excel. Status, of course, because we are mainly focused on the S5 workflow. And although we would expect only to have visibility of those, there are instances where we end up seeing other status as well. So Morta helps us just to filter those items that are that went through that workflow. Organization. So what was the organization that uploaded that document? When it was last modified for context for the reviewer, and the URL. The URL is the absolute fundamental part of it because that is what's going to make the link between Morta and the CDE solution. Because of course we want the commenting process to happen in the CDE solution. We want files to be accessed via CDE. Commenting, acceptance, rejection, everything should happen in the CDE. So like I said before, Morta is just a guide. It's just an interface that will facilitate that bridge, basically. So the reviewers don't have to go on the CDE looking for deliverables and trying to find the right revision. None of that. Morta will give them that straight away. We also ended up with 4 optional, but also nice to have attributes. So one is created by. It's surprisingly not available in all CDE solutions. Format, folder, and stage. So folder and stage are usually when there is when we are coordinating with the contractor. Sometimes there are agreements on what folder we should be looking at, or sometimes we should only look at deliverables that have the stage metadata populated. So this really helps with the filtering of information. Having those defined metadata fields really helped us creating the table lookups in Morta, right? So just to avoid that we sync to one CDE and then while unsyncing to sync to another one, anything would break basically. So having those consistent fields would create an operational template essentially. So the next step would be to, say file name, for example, we have to map those metadata fields into the appropriate attribute of each CDE. So say file name. Viewpoint, Autodesk, Construction Cloud, ACC, and Procore call it name, right? However, that's where it gets interesting. AConnect will call it document number. ASite will call it document ref. So with the Python script, we were able to create one mechanism to look for name. Then if it doesn't find it, it will go for document number. If it doesn't find it, it will go for document reference. So this makes up our template really plug and play, right? So we can unsync from one CDE and sync to another very, very easily. This same sort of logic was used for all attributes, custom or default attributes of all CDEs. The second part of the setup that I thought was quite important to mention is the review matrix. This is an exercise we started doing before we started using Morta. It's just to define, from the list of deliverables the client is expecting, who are responsible, who are the roles or the disciplines that are responsible for looking at each one of them. So take, service coordination strategy drawings. We would expect those 5 individuals to look at them and to accept, reject, to raise comments, or challenge anything that's not looking right. So we undertook this exercise for the entire list of the of deliverables, essentially. So that was a fundamental part, because this is what gives the target list for each reviewer. So when the mechanical logs into Morta, they will only see items that are assigned to the mechanical discipline. Now I'll show you a bit how the solution looks like. Like I said before, this is still something that we are trialing, but happy to show you for now. So we'll start a review with the planned submission compliance, right? So this will take the information from the MIDP and compare with the list of deliverables we expect to receive at that stage. So I can see here that 70% of the 115 deliverables I was expecting were delivered. So this gives an opportunity to reach out to the contractor early on, right? So this is an MIDP that we would expect to receive very early on before the submission start. We can coordinate what's happening with those deliverables. Sometimes they were missed out from the MIDP, or, we need to coordinate a date. So this gives an opportunity to address problems early on. Same goes for the MIDP check. With Morta, with us populating some information from the project's information standard, we can easily create validation rules in Morta that will tell us, okay, there was a typo in the project code, or I can see that the NGF organization might have not been added to the project's information standard, or a form code was incorrect. So this makes it quite easy to visualize these problems. And in this particular table, we'll only see those items that have a validation issue. Now, if you look at that final column in there, file name in CD, so what that is doing is just making sure that everything that was logged in the MIDP has been also uploaded in the CD. So it's that cross-reference that we're after, right? We want 100% compliance and alignment between these two. So with this, it makes it, again, quite easy for the information manager to spot those problems early on. There is, the majority of the cases, there are typos, right? And not having to kind of manually look for the typos makes it very, very much easier. Then once the review, once the deliverables actually get uploaded, we'll have that almost real-time submission compliance, right? So this is looking at the CD deliverables against the list of required deliverables. And then I can see submission was pretty good, 97%. So we just have 4 deliverable types missing. So what we're looking for is at least 1 file to respond to 1 deliverable type. So with this one, again, with the one-click integration, either with the manual sync or with the automatic refresh, we'll see this number increasing more and more as the contractor continues uploading their files. And again, this will save us a lot of time. Instead of going to the CD, extracting a report, loading into our Excel tool, this is pretty much the click of a button, and then we'll see those numbers increasing. Now, every discipline that is a reviewer, essentially, they have 2 tabs. They have their own page and 2 tabs. One is the current revisions. What this table is going to do is to show them all the deliverable references or deliverable types they've been assigned to, and only the current revisions, because like I said before, we don't want them accidentally reviewing something that is outdated. So essentially, they will use that vote TA. Let's say in this case for the architect, they will pick what is the vote that they want to cast for that deliverable. Now, bear in mind, this is just a way for them to communicate with the lead TA, right? This is them saying, look, from my discipline, from the architectural discipline, this deliverable P01 is accepted. The way they're going to do that is using the link that is in the URL right at the end. That link will take them to the specific file and the specific revision within the CDE. That is where ideally they will drop their comments, of course, because if they have any, to communicate with the delivery team. And once they close that, they will come back here and then cast their vote. Now, if they reject a deliverable, so let's say, we have a P02 there on the third line. If they rejected a deliverable and a contractor uploads a P03, what will happen is that they will see an empty value there, an empty cell, because they have not reviewed that P03 version. So it'll be very, very apparent that they still need to review that deliverable. If they want to quickly refer to the previous versions, they are going to go to the history chapter of their page. So the history essentially is the same list, but it's going to be unfiltered for its latest revision. So we're going to see all the history of those revisions in there. So for that particular file, let's say, if we had a P03, the architect will be able to quickly see that they've rejected the P01, they rejected the P02 before. So if they want to check their comments, again, they can click on the links, and the links will take them straight to the CDE, where they will be able to see the comments they previously dropped. There was another aspect we were really trying to address, which is this bird's eye view for the lead TA. On this table, we have a list of all the deliverable types, unfiltered by discipline, so file names, descriptions, revisions. And in these last columns here, we have a summary of the review progress, right? So I can see, for example, the electrical and mechanical have not started their review for some deliverables, right? If I filter, I can easily track down what are those deliverables that still need to be reviewed and address that directly with them, so speeding up the process. Also waiting for comments, and ultimately files that have been rejected, right? We can easily filter them down and understand, okay, what are the disciplines that are involved? What are the particular files? Do we need to organize a workshop? How can we be proactive in resolving these issues so they can be, resubmitted and finally accepted with comments? So makes it quite easy to identify the bottlenecks for a project and gain time for the project. Now, the commenting in a tabular format is something that we would only use as a fallback plan, right? So there are some cases where the CDE is not quite there, and we're not quite able to comment in there. So with the sync comments function in Morta, we can get people to use the normal commenting feature, and when we press sync, they will land into a tabular format. That will be, they will be organized by the discipline, what was the date, and who was the individual who raised that comment, and what was the content of the comment, right? So with that, we can easily get a CSV file, share that with the contractor, and keep addressing those issues. Once the issue has been addressed, we would resolve that comment, and then it would jump to the column on the left, resolved comments. Ideal scenario, of course, in these situations, we would have the contractor come in and comment and participate, reply to the answers within Morta, but that it's just not happened just yet. So we're still using the Excel export, like a one-way method of exporting information to the delivery team. But this is a feature that is also quite relevant in those cases where we can't comment on the CDE. Now, another use case is how to monitor review cycles. So with this feature, we are able to count how many revisions we had to look at until we got to an accepted or accepted with comments status, or how many times a file has been rejected, or how many times we had to go through clarification rounds. So, of course, when you start gathering data in the way that we are doing here, there are, a number of insights we can get. And like I said, this is really just the start, but this is one of the items that we had an interest on, just to make sure that we can keep track of how many rounds, how much time is necessary, how many individuals in the review were required to undertake those multiple reviews. So this is an area that we are exploring as well. Now, kind of going towards the conclusion now. I'll just share with you some lessons learned, some items that I'd like to have in Morta later on. But let's start with lessons learned. Defining the core metadata fields and setting up the lookup tables were a very, very important milestone to create a template. So without those, like I said before, we would use the one-click integration to connect with one CD, and if we started using another one, the links would break, the tables would break, the scripts, everything. So having those consistent columns that are reading whatever the metadata is in the CD really create this sort of plug and play template. The second point there is, Morta significantly simplifies the processes for the end users. And this, so we had already a lot of feedback about it, how much easier it is for the reviewers and time saving as well. But it is important to acknowledge that the system will require a degree of technical knowledge and upskilling. This is not a Morta thing. If any tool that you're going to develop and create something bespoke will require some level of technical knowledge, right? So if we create a tool in Excel, that will also require Power Query knowledge or formulas knowledge. So this is not a Morta thing. It's just something to keep in mind. The third point there is, when setting up a one-click integration for the first time, just allow time for hiccups. So we had a few situations where we couldn't read the data from the CD, or the how things were called in the CD was a little bit inconsistent. So we had a few items to troubleshoot before we could get started. However, once the integration is working for the first time, then it should be, again, quite easy to replicate that for other projects. Fourth point there, Python knowledge is very, very important. So, that some of the things that we are doing there with, especially with the bird's eye view and interpreting who are the reviewers that accepted, rejected, etc. This would not be really possible without Python. So I'll take this chance to acknowledge my dear colleague, Adam Green, who was very, very supportive in the process. So something to keep in mind. It is very important to use Python to, if you want to create more sophisticated workflows with Morta. Feature wish list, something the Morta team knows about already, but I thought I would share anyway. So an overall admin interface to manage users, to manage diagnostics of the various hubs. I know that there is a mechanism to do that for the users, but it'd be good to have one single admin platform where you can manage all of the aspects of the different project hubs. So, for example, having how many syncs I have running, if it failed, which ones failed, is it consistent for one CD that we're having issues, how many individuals I have who have the sync enabled. So it'd be really good to have those, to have that understanding really for all the hubs. Centralized control view filters. So the way our platform is set up at the moment, it does require setting up the views individually. So say, if unexpectedly there was a folder that we were supposed to look at, this was not agreed before, we would have to go view by view, adding that filter to that particular folder for all the reviewers. So it would be nice if there could be a way of controlling that in a centralized way. Customization options for the left side menu. So sometimes people get a bit confused if they see it empty. So if people don't have any access to one of the areas, it will just show empty. And sometimes people get a little bit, am I seeing everything that I'm supposed to see? Am I missing anything? No, you're still good. you just don't have access to that area. So it'd be good to just get rid of that. And chart colors and more control over the output graphics. The output or the export is still something that we're working on. But it would be good to have more control to use, like Mace template, or to define some graphic standards that we could use, colors, etc., to create our reports and other outputs as well. Some of the other applications we're looking at are creating a project-specific and a master lessons learned log. So the project-specific area would be in the same hub where the deliverable review platform is. And we would bring some of those lessons that are maybe framework-specific or framework-wide, we bring them to a master log that we can then monitor and cascade when necessary. Same for derogations. So for internal management and escalation. So it's a bit tricky to manage at the moment. If there is an item that is constantly getting derogated by multiple delivery teams, it's probably something that we need to keep track of and escalate with the client. Do we need to review this requirement? There's something going on here. So it's something that we have in mind as well. And finally, we really want to bring our assurance report into Morta. So a lot of the information management part of it is already in there, but we want to bring the part of, with the BIM review, the IC native, Kobe, etc., that part of the review into Morta as well. In terms of benefits, it's really creating a standardized approach instead of a bespoke approach that would change really depending on the contractor, depending on the LTA, depending on the tools available. Standardized approach and absolutely time saving. So it's time saved by our information managers running compliance checks prior to the review start. So basically, once the documents start getting uploaded, it's quite easy for us to see, again, that number growing, the submission compliance growing. And, so we are a lot faster in terms of giving the go-ahead to the LTA for commencing the review, and not really relying on that export, manual process, Excel, and then reporting back. So this is a lot faster. Also, the LTA has visibility over that submission compliance table, so they can even monitor how the percentage is growing. Time saved by our reviewing team looking for deliverables, so they no longer have to learn how to look for deliverables in every single CDE solution. They can just use the links in Morta, navigate through their list, make sure that they have reviewed everything that is there, nothing else to worry about. And time saved by the LTA in identifying those bottlenecks and closing out the pending items. So, if there are several items that are rejected, organizing a workshop or understanding where the problems are coming from and then trying to resolve things as quick as possible. So I think that's what I had to cover today. Thank you for listening to me. I'm happy to take any questions if there are any.
Jamile, thanks a lot for that. That was absolutely brilliant. I'm sure that there were a lot of takeaways from people hearing it. I think I find it I've said this to you, right? I find that for the slide where you go explain the challenge and the solution. I think it's such a powerful slide, and I really like the way you talked about the importance of data consistency and defining the data upfront in many ways that you want, and then how you're using the platform to reconcile effectively the data from the different CDEs. I think it opens up a really important, just generally speaking, topic when it comes to these things. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, that metadata exercise was quite important, really, because there were brainstorming sessions between Jad, between Adam, myself, where we were figuring out what was the best approach, and if I'm quite happy with what we ended up with. So with that Python script that looks for um, one attribute. If it doesn't find it, goes for the other one. If it doesn't find it, goes for the other one. So it makes it quite easy to manage and it makes it quite easy actually to set up a new project, getting the template and then kicking off a new project as well.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's I think it's a really, like, generally speaking, this topic of data standardization, a lot of people are looking for a single system in many ways, but what you've gone and said is, I'm going to need to live in a reality of there are going to be mixed systems, but this is the key data that I need between all of these systems, and then this is how I can standardize it. And in many ways, it's a data model, that you started effectively laying out and putting together. So I think it's quite and generally speaking, it got me thinking around, there could almost be a diagram with the specific data that's needed from the different CDEs, and then which CDEs have them, and just open up a mapping table. But yeah, no, thanks a lot for sharing that.
No worries.
I have a few questions for you on my end, but I also saw a question by Rui. So Rui works with a tier one, and he was asking, I assume this process is based on receiving an MIDP in more in Excel format. So the status quo right now is contractors are working on Excel, but increasingly what's happening is some contractors, for example, are working on Morta, and then what some clients too are effectively then like working on Morta. A lot of how what do you think will happen as more of the, rather than them having to upload the CSV, do you envisage them submitting it directly from their hubs into Morta? Just, yeah, curious what you think about that.
I think that would be amazing. I mean, yeah, that would be ideal, wouldn't it? Um, I think, yeah, for this particular framework, there are certain manual steps that we kept in our Mortar setup, and that is for the reason that there isn't a standard MIDP. There is a standard MIDP, but it's not reinforced um, to the delivery team. So we have that there needs to be a human that is opening an Excel file, identifying the key points that we want to extract, and then uploading them to Mortar in a standardized way, right? But the sequence of the columns might be different. The fields even might be different. So we need to have that manual component, and that is just, like I said, we're trying just being realistic, and this is what it is, right? We need to have that flexibility into uploading the right information to Mortar. Now, I think that would be really good, like to have the MIDP directly into Mortar and then linking up information directly. Again, it would be similar to what we're doing with the CDEs, right? We would have, just by syncing up, we would see that percentage growing instead of us providing comments, then receiving a new review of the MIDP. That will save a lot of clicks, certainly. But regardless, it's very, very important to agree on the schema that is being used, either Excel or Mortar, to have exactly what are the columns, how they are called, what is the syntax that is expected. So that needs to be agreed either way.
Yeah, and I think, like, there's always going to be the reality of different systems are going to be used, and I think what I really like about what you've done, just generally speaking, and your approach is, all of it is about, this is the reality that I'm in, and I need to be able to collect certain data.
Absolutely.
And there are some frameworks and like there are some projects where everything is standardized, and then there are projects that there aren't, and supply chain members that may not, and you need to make sure that you can get the data that you need in order to do what you need to do. And you've really worked in that reality, whether it's reconciling the data from the different CDEs. But I also liked like the three, it's effectively three columns, if I'm not mistaken, that you are always getting: the document name, the description, and then there were two optional ones. Sorry, I
And
think there were
yeah,
four.
so we need the deliverable reference, the file name, description. These are absolutely fundamentals for in the revision, of course. But so from the MIDP point of view, deliverable reference, file name, description are absolutely fundamental. So, but you know what? You saying that, I think there's also an opportunity for us to show how it could work, like how a standard version could work. So that could also show value to the client in terms of okay, this is how it looks like if we do standardize. These are the core fields that we need. This is the fundamental information that we should be after. So it is a an opportunity of improving the framework itself while working on the real version. What we need day to day to run our projects.
Yeah, yeah, that's one of the things that we're very like big on, this concept of work with the day to day, and then influence toward
The
like, but
future.
don't wait until the future is fixed, so to speak. Get,
Exactly. Yeah. If we had the ideal world, then that would be a lot easier. But
yeah,
no,
life would be much easier.
exactly.
I'm just curious, like in relation to this, how have you thought about buy-in? I mean, we had a bit of a discussion earlier offline around like buy-in from people, but also from contractors. Like, how do you think about buy-in, and where do you need? You said in some cases the buy-in wasn't super critical, but yeah, how have you managed just buy-in,
Sure thing.
generally speaking, and getting people on the journey with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the very special things that we have with Morta is that there isn't a lot of required buy-in from contractors, right? Because apart from one exception, I suppose, which is ACC, where we do need them to download a plugin, there is no requirement for authorization. So it makes it quite easier for us to proceed with our reviews. Um, so there was one other situation where it was one of those cases where the CD was not quite ready. The CD solution was not quite ready. We decided to use Morta, but the contractor was not keen on jumping in and using it for commenting, essentially. So that's why we ended up going to that, export CSV, share that with the contractor, then receive back the comments, reply to the comments in Morta. So it's a bit of a manual process, but other than that, um, the contractors can be quite comfortable that they don't have to engage. There is usually a concern around this. We don't want to learn a new platform. We don't want to. Same way, I can understand because this is where we're coming from as well. So I think it's quite comforting for them as well to not to have to engage. So I think that is quite good. In terms of internal buy-in, um, we had a similar structure, a lot less clever, with another database. But then when we started moving into Morta, there was a lot of potential started coming through, and now I get requests from my colleagues who are lead TAs or architects, or I have an idea for Morta. Can we do this? Can we test that? Could we use Morta for this use case? So, for example, lessons learned or derogations or checking the review cycles. These are all ideas that are coming. So it's quite nice to see people understanding the value of what we are implementing. This is not an IM thing. This is not a BIM thing. This is something that will benefit um, the whole project essentially. So people want to leverage the data that we are collecting. So I'm quite happy with that.
Yeah. Um, I I love how initially this all like started with you coming up with an idea that we hadn't thought of, but then people start using it, and then now your colleagues are also coming up with other ideas as well, and I
It's
think
quite
that's
nice to
one of
see.
the it's one of the really I think it's one of the things that keeps our jobs exciting too, because you just learn about different things and different use cases, and you just see people coming up with things that they're excited about themselves. So
Absolutely, and problems they have, right, that we don't necessarily know about. So they have a problem, and they might think that there is a solution for it with the project hub. So
yeah,
yeah, it's quite good.
um, and I wanted to go back. I think one of the interesting themes in the discussion, like here, that and what a big takeaway for me in your presentation is the fact that you need to live in a reality, and there are going to be different projects with slightly different setups. And in an ideal world, if you had everything and it was completely standardized and everything was included in contracts, and this system is going to be used like that, that would all like have implications. But you've lived in a, you've just gone in, you've been able to introduce this process because there isn't that much change that's required from any of the other parties. You're not asking them to duplicate their information or asking them to do much at all
Exactly.
as a change. You've been able to implement this process within these projects, and I find that quite interesting, especially in light of you then have like someone like Rui who's then saying, so he just said, asked, I suppose within Morta we can create specific and agreed views of exchange between hubs of the same framework. So then over time you can have this other, you can work with people who aren't on the platform, but you can work with people on the platform, and you've been able to standardize and the outcomes regardless of whether the contractors are on the platform or they're not. Like, so I find this quite interesting because it's one of the key things that we really wanted to enable as a company, that you're going to have to work within a mix of paradigms at the same time, especially for the bigger clients. And you need something that's agnostic of the specific systems that are being deployed, while enabling you to get out of it what you want. And I think just the exchange as well, not just the presentation, but the types of questions that Rui has asked, really highlights that.
Absolutely, yeah. Because then we're not getting an export, PDFing it, and then sharing. There's more visibility and more collaboration ultimately between the different teams. So yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the comments, the questions, Rory, by the way. Also the nice
Uh,
comments there. But yeah,
um,
absolutely. I think it's collaboration, and it's less clicks when sharing information. It's a more controlled process. You know where to find information when you need it. So yeah, absolutely. I think that would be great.
Awesome. Well, I just want to thank you for all of the time you took today. I think the session has been absolutely brilliant, really, really informative. There are actually a lot of takeaways from your presentation, that like everything from how to think about the standardization of data to how to like just be pragmatic and just approach the thinking and these implementations, and work with the existing world as it is, while pushing it effectively in the direction that you'd like it to go. I think there is a lot of inspiration to be taken from the presentation.
Oh,
So
thank you, man.
thanks a lot for the time you've put in making it, and for your time today.
No worries. Thanks again for the invite.
No worries. Absolute pleasure. Thanks a lot, Jamile. Thanks a lot, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We hope you found it useful. The next session will be with me, as we discussed, and I'll be sharing a lot about the product updates and our plans effectively for the next half of the year. So look forward to seeing you then. And thanks again to Jamile and for everyone who joined us today. Have a good day.
Awesome. Thank you, Mo. Thank you, everyone.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.